So guys, today we're talking once again about the Eunoia exotic warlock gloves. I recently made a video going over all of the brand new exotics and giving my first impressions on them, and I stated that these things weren't actually all that great. But over the last couple of days, I've been seeing non-stop praise for these exotics, so I wanted to test it for myself and see what the hype was all about and if these things were actually worth using or not. So that's what we're doing here today. We're going to be talking about a build to use with these things, as well as just my new and improved thoughts, because after some testing, these things do actually do some pretty decent damage for Hellion, and actually do provide some good support as well. So let's just jump straight in with first off, how you get these new exotics. You're first going to want to go and do one of two things. Either complete the brand new Edge of Fate campaign on legendary difficulty on your Warlock, or go and complete the brand new Kepler activity called Deceive, which is available every 1.5 hour period roughly on that destination. After completing that activity, you will also be rewarded with these new exotics depending on what class you are playing. But now that you've got your hands on these things, what do they actually do? Well, these come with the perk Console's Pitch, where Hellion projectiles deal increased damage the further they travel and will eventually fracture into scorching projectiles. So what that actually looks like is that you have your normal Hellion, but it now has this little like X effect on it, which looks kind of cool. Once the projectile shoots out, once it travels a certain distance, it will then split into a load of other smaller projectiles. Now, most of the time, these projectiles are going to miss, which is something that I hope Bungie buffs in the near future. Just increase the tracking on these things so that it at least kind of tries to hit a target. But there is a sweet spot you can get where once the projectile travels a certain distance, you want to have it so that the projectile itself fractures like right in front of a bigger target, because then you're going to be guaranteeing that these projectiles actually end up hitting that target. And this will result in an actual damage increase compared to not using this exotic. Now, a lot of people from what I have seen have also stated that maybe using Dawn Chorus is better, but from my testing, this actually isn't true. So just using the normal Hellion aspect with no featured exotic, in total, alongside the Fragment Emperor of Ashes, which is going to be improving the amount of Scorch stacks you apply to targets, you're going to be dealing around 4,668 damage just with Hellion. If you're using Dawn Chorus, which for those who don't know, increases the damage that your Scorch effects deal, this does not increase how many Scorch stacks you apply, it just increases the damage that each tick of Scorch does. This, in total, with just Hellion damage, brings your damage total up to 5,193, but if you're using Eunoia and are able to have every single projectile hit that same target, you're actually going to be doing in total 6,130 damage roughly. Some of the projectiles did miss in the footage, so you might end up even doing more, but just generally, you're going to be doing way more damage. And with Eunoia, if you want to be igniting people a whole lot faster, these exotics will also do that. Because Hellion normally, with no exotic, takes 3 shots to ignite a target. But Eunoia, if you hit all the projectiles again, will actually ignite targets in only 2 shots, which is very, very good for just stunning unstoppable champions or just stunning any kind of champion generally, because if you're constantly igniting them, they're not going to be able to do either their anti-barrier effect or really heal back from overload as well, which is very, very good for higher end content. But, like I've said, the main downfall here is the projectile tracking. Most of the time, these projectiles aren't going to hit unless you're in that sweet spot range, which allows them to then actually hit. So fingers crossed, Bungie does in the near future buff the tracking on these things so that then at least every projectile hits, because at the moment, these are probably the most inconsistent exotic. Now, in terms of just actual ad clear, this is when stuff becomes a little bit more consistent, because if you're at a certain range, the projectiles themselves will try to hit a group of enemies, which can actually be really, really potent, and it's just a nice benefit to have, especially when you pair it with some certain fragments that will allow you to constantly have your Hellion active. So if we dive into the subclass breakdown here, obviously we're using Phoenix Dive as our class ability because it has the shortest base cooldown and the fastest animation times, meaning that we're just going to be able to very quickly get our Hellion back up. For our melee, I'm using Incinerator Snap just because if you hit all the projectiles with this melee ability, you're going to be causing even more ignitions, which is very, very good. But you can also use Celestial Fire if you want to. This does also scorch targets, but it only shoots out 3 projectiles, so you're not going to be causing any ignitions with this melee ability on its own, but you do get the benefit of extra range, so there's a trade-off there. For my grenade, I'm using the solar grenade, but if you need a little bit more survivability with this build, you can throw on a healing grenade, which is very good as well. For the aspects, of course, you're going to need Hellion. This is going to be summoning your solar soul, and then I'm using Icarus Dash just because I love this ability, but you can use pretty much any other aspect if you prefer those. For the fragments though, we are of course using the Ember of Mercy, where picking up a fire sprite is going to be granting us restoration. Then we have Ember of Singeing, where your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. This fragment alone is going to be keeping your Hellion up 100% of the time, due to the Hellion itself being able to scorch targets and you needing to use your class ability in order to summon your Hellion. This is just a repeating cycle of use Hellion to scorch targets to then feed back into your class ability energy, which then will feed back into summoning Hellion faster. We're then also using Ember of Ashes for the improved Scorch stacks. This is just going to be stacking on those Scorch stacks much faster compared to you not using Ember of Ashes, so this is a mandatory fragment here. And then finally we have Ember of Searing, where defeating a Scorch target is not only going to grant you melee energy, but will also create a Fire Sprite, which is very, very good for just general survivability paired with Ember of Mercy. Now, let's talk weapons. In the gameplay, I'm using Polaris Lance because it's a very easy weapon to apply Scorch and Ignitions with. For those who don't know, it comes with the intrinsic trait Perfect Fifth, where precision hits return ammo to the mag and landing 4 precision hits loads a delayed explosive round that scorches targets on hit. It then also comes with Zen Moment, which is a nice buff, but then the Catalyst is also going to give you Dragonfly, where precision kills create an elemental damage explosion, which is just a nice thing there for ad clear. This can be swapped out for another exotic, that being Devil's Ruin. This one is also able to scorch and ignite people very, very fast, and is also able to generate fire sprites now just in its base mode, so it's also a very good weapon to use this episode. But if you don't want to be using any of those exotics and want to use a different exotic, I would highly recommend that you either get a legendary weapon with Incandescent or a brand new trait called Burning Ambition, which is basically the jolting feedback but for solar, where if you're dealing consistent damage to a target, you're going to be scorching them, and then those scorches can lead to ignitions, which is very, very good. I do believe that Burning Ambition can come on one of the brand new auto rifles that's currently available to get from Battleground Oracle right now, for me anyway. The Hab Char, probably saying that completely wrong, but this auto rifle is very, very good. And for any of those looking to farm out Solstice next week, the brand new Solar SMG from that event can also come with Burning Ambition as well, so that might be a very good pickup for this build. Now, moving on to the armor mods. Here, of course, nothing really in the helmet too mandatory. Solar Siphon's just good there for if you're using solar weapons, which you should definitely be doing with this build. I then have a firepower and grenade kickstarter, just so I'm able to get my solar grenades back a little bit faster. For the chest piece, we of course have just your damage resistance mods. Then for my boots, I of course have innovation, so that I'm able to reduce my grenade cooldown every time I pick up an orb of power. Once again, feeding back into my either solar grenade or healing grenade, which is great, and then better already just for more survivability. And then we of course have some bomber mods and a reaper mod for more orb generation and grenade uptime. The main reason that I'm not using any mods here that will increase my class ability uptime is because I literally get my class ability back instantly with just Eunoia and the specific fragment here, Ember of Singeing. And I also have 120 class stat. I believe you just need to get to like 70 odd, and you should be able to get your class ability back very, very quickly. If you go over 100 in the class stat, you're also going to be getting an overshield whenever you cast your class ability, which is also a very, very nice addition. Sadly, this doesn't increase the damage that your Hellion deals. I feel like that could be a very nice buff to Warlocks here if these specific class stats, depending on which one you use to generate your solar buddy or buddy of choice, could increase the damage that those buddies end up doing. That could be a nice addition, but sadly that is not how this works. So if you go above 100 class, you're only going to be increasing your survivability when using that ability and not increasing the lethality for Hellion in this example. And then if we end off here going into my artifact perks, of course I'm using Radiant Shrapnel as well as Elemental Overdrive. This is going to be giving me weapon damage on elemental pickups as well as just some free damage whenever I'm Radiant and defeat scorched targets. Going to be generating those solar projectiles, which is just free damage. And then I'm also using Shoulder to Shoulder, where dealing sustained precision damage against combatants while near 2 or more of my allies is going to grant me damage resistance. This paired with Polaris Lance, very, very nice. Then we also have Elemental Coalescence, where defeating targets has a chance to create an elemental pickup matching your equipped super. Once again, more fire sprite generation. then also have refreshing threads, where picking up an elemental pickup matching your subclass element or a tangle while you have a strand super grants energy to your least charged abilities. Once again, just more energy generation. Then Fever and Chill, rapid precision hits with solo weapons is going to make me radiant, 3 damage boost. Then if you're using Polaris Lance, rapid precision rifling is also going to be very, very good here for scout rifles. And that, I believe, is everything for this build. So in general, Eunoia, not the best exotic in the world, but if you like using Hellion, it's your best option right now. But it does definitely need a buff in order for it to be a lot more consistent, because currently it's not all that consistent with the projectiles mainly missing. But if you are able to get to that sweet spot once again of those projectiles exploding right in the enemy's face for them to be guaranteed to hit the target, it does end up working very, very well. And that is it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll have a dim link down in the description if you want to be using this build for yourself. But with that all said, once again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.